Payday Crime War is finally upon us. The Payday-themed mobile shooter has risen from the ashes and is soon to be a fully fledged heisting experience available to all worldwide. In fact, if this video piques your interest, you can pre-register for the game from anywhere in the world to start heisting as soon as it becomes available. The game has been through the early access gauntlet across multiple regions, having been in dedicated ground-up development for over 18 months, and with a worldwide release just around the corner, it's time for me to step into little mobile Dallas' shoes to review the game as it stands at launch. First of all, a huge congratulations to Pop Region Starbreeze for finally making it to this milestone. Crime War is a game that really could have been lost to time, never to see the light of day, after losing its initial publisher and ceasing internal development in 2019. Since then, the game has been handed over to a specialised mobile developer and is completely unrecognisable from its initial limited release, going from its pure PvP cops vs robbers concept to more of a Payday 2 light, with a focus on co-op heisting and adapting that core Payday gameplay loop for the mobile platform. This video is going to review all elements of the game as of May 2023, obviously paying close attention to how well it emulates that core Payday 2 experience, the state of its PvP mode, cash grab, and of course the monetization tactics that you need to be aware of before trying out this free-to-play title. Let's start by heading into a heist to take a closer look at how well Payday 2 carries over to your mobile device. Honestly, it's a really faithful conversion, with some of the heists actually being brighter and more vibrant than what we're used to seeing within Payday 2. Heister and cop models are a little limited, but overall I find the game fairly appealing to look at considering it's on a 6-inch screen. I don't have enough experience in the mobile industry to really make comparisons, but graphically I'm more than happy with Crime War's performance. Let's be fair, as Payday fans, if we're still happy playing 10-year-old Payday 2, switching over to a mobile version shouldn't be that much of a shock to the system. Beyond just graphical fidelity though, performance is a key factor. For reference, I've been playing this on an iPhone 12 and have had little difficulty playing the game at a solid 60 FPS on most heists. There have been a few bumps along the way, many of which seem to have been caused by latency issues. Also, my poor phone is running hot as a furnace, but that might have more to do with recording at the same time and it being an older model. Understandably, this is a pre-release version, so there are a few teething problems and crashes that will hopefully be completely removed from the global release. In terms of the game's control scheme, it seems to follow the same accepted layout as other mobile shooters on the market, with far greater precision of input than the early tester versions had. I remember playing the first PvP beta a year or so ago and being disappointed by the automatic interaction and clunky movement, but the game now requires an input to engage with objectives like safes and loot, making the experience closer to what we're used to in Payday 2. Crouch and jump inputs are also key additions necessary for taking cover and playing through heists in stealth. I found the game's movement and aiming to be fairly responsive, although I'm far from the best source when it comes to evaluating mobile-style touch aiming. I'm not great at it, and would be much more comfortable with a controller or mouse in my hand. As for shooting, the auto-fire option remains within the game, and is still a godsend for those of us that struggle to aim and shoot simultaneously. This can be set to fire from the hip when you hover over a target, or ADS and shoot depending on your preference. Aiming down sights can also be handled manually by either a single tap, double tap, or tap and hold system. Overall, I think the game does everything in its power to make combat as streamlined as possible, to the point at which some players might find that it takes the fun out of a horde-style shooter like Payday 2. I'll be touching on difficulty more further into this video, but one initial criticism is how easy things feel, especially when all I need to do is point my heister in vaguely the correct direction and the game does the rest for me. I'm not sure there's a much better alternative though, as I've found the auto-fire setting to be an outright necessity when playing with traditional touchscreen controls. Now onto the most important section of the review, the general gameplay. What is Crime War all about? Because I'm sure there's many of you who've maybe followed my videos from arm's length or played the original beta back in 2018 who have no idea what to expect from Pop Reach's version of the game. Essentially, Crime War is a simplified Payday 2, taking the template of many of its heists, converting them into a style more suitable for a sub 10-minute mobile gaming session, and adding the option for a PvP mode which serves as a highlight to set it apart. Whilst PvP is still a key element of the game, it's not the fully fledged cops vs robbers model we once had. Instead, Pop Reach have refined development to be all about the heists, heisters, and loot. As such, I'd say the primary focus was porting over a good portion of the cooperative PvE formula Payday is so well known for. These missions play out similarly to their Payday 2 counterparts, with a degree of randomization, KC mode to set up the heist, and the ability to proceed either loud or in stealth. The general objectives remain similar, be they to drill a vault, smash and grab jewelry, or lockpick safes, although all of these mechanics have been drastically sped up to suit the fast-paced mobile medium. Bags can be stacked depending on their weight, drills don't last for longer than 30 seconds, and keycards retain their application outside of stealth. Assault waves work just as in Payday 2 but get progressively harder at a much faster rate, punishing you for hanging around on any heist. As such, the average length of a heist is 5 minutes, and there's a 10-minute hard cap on all heists to prevent them from overrunning. This will serve to create a more concentrated Payday experience over a shorter time frame, with a fair bit of emphasis on replayability. In terms of rewards, you'll risk a portion of your free-to-play currency to start any heist, and will be rewarded with more cash upon completion. Loose loot also still exists to keep that heisting feel alive. Alongside the financial reward, which can be used to upgrade and modify your arsenal of weapons, as well as fund future heists, you'll receive a safe upon completion, which, depending on the difficulty of the heist, will provide you with future rewards once you've drilled it open. More on the reward mechanics and safes though later in the video, when we get onto how the game is monetized. Of course, alongside this classic Payday style experience, we have the cash grab PvP mode, which has not changed a great deal since the early alpha test. It's a 4 vs 4 capture the flag style game mode, where the main objective is to steal cash from an opponent's safe and secure it within your own, creating a tug of war sort of back and forth between attacking and defending. There have been some key improvements since I last reviewed the mode though. Spawns seem to have been refined to prevent endless spawn trapping, and there's a 10-second respawn delay which prevents stalemates from happening, making kills more valuable and placing emphasis on reviving downed teammates. Also, now we have both the Crossroads map from early alpha, alongside a much more detailed Golden Green Casino style map which has been built from the ground up to suit the game mode. I was really impressed by this one, and I'm excited to see the PvP map roster expand in the future. Unfortunately, Pop Reach didn't heed my concerns about balance within this game mode, as there's still a very clear dominant strategy. Basically, all you need to do is get an early money lead in your initial exchange, and it will be simple to just camp and defend your safe to hold out for a win. There's nothing to encourage more aggressive play once you have a lead, so I'm still imploring the guys to add some sort of neutral and contestable objective to the mode. To be fair, bearing in mind I'm playing on an early access copy of the game that hasn't even released in my region, the odds of me actually running into a real player are slim to none, meaning most of my gameplay has been up against bots so far. The actual gameplay of 4v4 human players might be a little more nuanced than what I've experienced. Even up against bots though, I was actually quite impressed by how fun the mode was and how functional the bots are, presenting a decent challenge and allowing me to fully enjoy the PvP gunplay to its fullest. The gunplay is where the game really excels in my opinion. Porting a lot of weapons directly from Payday 2 has resulted in Crime War having a really impressive arsenal of options to choose from, and everything I've used has felt really fun and impactful. The gunplay is responsive and feels far more tactical than I expected from a mobile game. I also found uses for basically all weapon classes, which felt well balanced on the whole. Undoubtedly, it's a nightmarish balancing act for the devs trying to keep the Thanatos in line with the Compat 5 and the Judge on par with the Benetti. In some cases, I'm positive the balance is a little out of whack, and I've found the greatest success so far with assault rifles and LMGs, but all things considered, these Payday 2 guns translate really admirably to the PvP mode, and here is where their replayability will probably lie for me. Also, I appreciate that you receive a high value weapon safe every time you complete 3 cash grab games, as it not only encourages players into the mode, but also allows you to progress your heisters and builds by exclusively playing PvP, which other mobile titles have gated financially in the past. For everyone else though, I'm sure you want to know more about how you can hit Branch Bank whilst on the tube to work. Let's talk details of the heist currently available within Payday Crime War. As it stands, I had access to 5 classic heists, playable on 2 difficulties, with several regions still yet to unlock on the map. I anticipate this roster will actually grow, maybe even prior to release. As it stands though, you can play through the Jewelry Store, Bank Heist, Art Gallery, 4 Stores, and Shadow Raid. 4 of these heists are pretty damn faithful to their original depiction in Payday 2, both visually and in terms of their objectives. Unfortunately, Shadow Raid has been neutered to only include the exterior portion of the heist, limiting the gameplay variety. To be as upfront as possible, these heists have been chosen for a clear reason. They have simple, easy to translate objectives which can absolutely be cleared in under 10 minutes. More complex heists will be much harder to port over due to the sheer amount of content that will need to be cut to fit into the Crime War formula. We've already seen it with Shadow Raid and its cut warehouse, so I wouldn't expect to see more complex multi-day heists such as Rats or Big Oil anytime soon, or possibly ever, to be honest. But the simplification of the Payday formula isn't entirely a bad thing. It allows Crime War to focus on the core elements of the gameplay loop that keep you coming back, namely the moment-to-moment gunplay and looting mechanics. And with the looting process being so streamlined, those successful heist dopamine hits come fast and often with this game. Also, it wouldn't be fair to point out only the times heists have been simplified in Crime War. Some heists, Jewelry Store in particular, have actually seen an expansion of their mechanics with newly added security rooms, meaning you need to take care of cameras if you want to pull off a smash and grab attempt in stealth. This is an excellent way to adapt the heist for Crime War's specific mechanics, bearing in mind we've lost access to tools like C4 or the ECM jammer. I've already alluded to it a few times, so I'm sure many of you are dying to hear how stealth plays on mobile, as I wasn't even sure stealth would make it into this adaptation. Overall, it's been pulled off about as well as you could hope for, with similar camera and guard detection mechanics, a detection wristbar that depends on the armor you bring to the heist, and the usual cable tying of civilians. Suppressors available for most weapons in the game, and on pistols immediately, meaning stealth isn't a gatekept mode. Guards no longer carry pages, meaning we can take them out silent assassin style, but sadly body bags also don't exist in the game. Cameras can be shot but are a little more forgiving in terms of forcing a heist loud, bearing in mind how much harder they are to hit with limited precision aiming on mobile. In all, the resulting stealth gameplay is a little on the janky side, but still reminiscent enough of Payday 2's systems to be enjoyable, with heists like Jewelry Store and Art Gallery being standouts for the mode. Unfortunately, other heists can be completely trivialized by stealth, which is just a little too forgiving in terms of what you can get away with, which brings us onto the overall difficulty of the game. Now, I've pretty much exclusively been forced to play with bots so far, but even so, I've yet to fail a heist. Easy difficulty carries very limited challenge, and even normal has yet to push me to the brink of failure. This comes down to a few factors. 1. The cops are daft, even more so than in Payday 2. They love to group in doorways and be mowed down together while spawning in predictable patterns and with set timings. As such, they barely act as a threat to your crew. Secondly, there are no special enemies. Variety cops like shields and tasers force you to think combat out a little differently, and whilst I'm not so sure tasers would be fun to deal with on mobile, there's nothing to change up the pace of assaults and catch you off guard. Finally, I think that heisters are just a little too tanky with access to heavy, replenishable armor almost immediately. Once I'd unlocked the combined tactical vest, I was never in any trouble again. All of this is a massive shame, as I genuinely believe Crime War's difficulty progression is superior to Payday 2's. A crazy statement, I know, but hear me out. Instead of just buffing the cops, Crime War adds entirely new objective elements to make a heist more challenging. The simplest example is Jewelry Store, where instead of 6 bags of jewelry on easy, it requires 8 golden statues on normal, which are not only more numerous, but also heavier, requiring additional trips to the van to secure. There are far more nuanced variations on this concept too. For example, the normal difficulty bank heist requires you to find and open an additional safe containing a keycard to access the final vault, whilst Art Gallery forces you to switch off 2 power boxes before you can access the marked paintings. As opposed to Payday 2, which adds challenge by increasing the mechanical difficulty of the game through bullet sponge enemies and insane damage outputs, Crime War incrementally ups its difficulty by focusing on additional strategic requirements within a heist. These can be overcome by thinking out a heist, planning around the curveballs, and developing a greater understanding of the missions themselves, instead of the usual get-goodisms we hear flying around in Payday 2. It's an incredibly admirable approach to difficulty that I hope the devs continue with, but at base, the game is still just lacking that challenge I would expect to see from a Payday title. I've touched on most elements of active gameplay within Payday Crime War, but still not mentioned one of the most pivotal elements of the game: progression and customization. This tends to be an area where mobile games struggle to compete and fall back on dirty monetization tactics to reel you in. So let's take a look at Crime War's current system. Predominantly, progression is centered around growing and upgrading our arsenal of weapons, armor, equipment, and heisters. This is achieved by obtaining these items as level up bonuses, from opening up safes earned by completing heists or playing cash grab, and finally from the Crime Pass, which is essentially a battle pass with both free and paid paths to unlock. Once you have enough of these items, depending on their rarity values, you can use up duplicates alongside some of your hard-earned cash to upgrade them, marginally increasing their base stats, whilst also giving you access to new attachments in the case of weapons at each level. Genuinely, I've found this to be a compelling, if slightly luck-orientated system of progression. I enjoy unlocking iconic weapons from within Payday 2, finding rares like the Thanatos and the Judge, as well as the notoriously overpowered Lion's Roar during my short time with the game. However, there has been some frustration that I haven't been able to just focus on the guns I enjoy using when it comes to unlocking their upgrades, as for the most part it's random what you receive. As I mentioned, this can also include upgrading your heisters, although the good news at this stage is that all of Crime Wars heisters are free to unlock as level up rewards just for playing. As things stand, we currently have access to Dallas, Chains, Wolf and Hoxton, alongside Sydney, Clover, Duke and Houston, although I see no reason why we won't end up with most of Payday 2's roster in the game. These heisters all fall into certain archetypes, which will likely dictate the skill tree they have access to once that element of progression is added in a future update. They also each have their own unique active perks. For example, Dallas can use an AoE medic bag heal, Wolf a sentry gun, Hoxton a speed boost and so on. Some of these skills are really interesting, like Duke getting a stoic style damage reduction ability, and Clover receiving one that specifically impacts how easy she is to detect within stealth. Although once again, from a balancing perspective, why would you ever play Clover in PvP when she literally doesn't have a skill and Chains can straight up double his fire rate? More thought is definitely going to have to go into these perks moving forward, but I like the way heisters are being handled at the moment. Other options to consider before heading into a heist include your primary and secondary weapons, which have been streamlined, as pistols basically serve as your secondaries and everything else falls into the primary class. We can also choose to set different equipment, including utility options like ammo bags or lethals such as throwing knives and grenades. Your armor will also dictate how a heist goes down, as suits are preferred for stealth, offering greater mobility and armor regeneration, whilst heavy armor like the ICTV is designed to just take as much upfront punishment as possible. Of course, at this point, you've got to be asking yourself, how is all of this monetized? It's a free-to-play game, so PopRich needs to make money somewhere, and there's a few different ways for them to do that at the moment. First of all, the paid currency, known as gold, can be purchased directly from the store. In terms of price, the conversion rate is 5 UK pounds to 100 gold, of course getting better conversion rates depending on whether you buy in bulk, which is about par for the course when we consider that the premium battle pass costs 200 gold. If you ask me, this is the sweet spot of value for money if you were inclined to put some money into the game. But you can always pay double that to also unlock the ability to drill multiple safes at once for the season, which will massively increase the rate at which you unlock and upgrade your weapons. As ever, you'll have limited time bundles thrown at you as you level up in game, which offer superior value, but have been surgically planted to try and catch you at your weakest moments and turn you into a paying player. This really isn't that insidious anymore, and it's just how most free-to-play mobile games work, but just keep in mind their number one job is still to get you to part with your cash, which should only be the case when you genuinely feel like a purchase is worthwhile given your prior and likely future enjoyment of the game. As I mentioned earlier, safes are the real crux of progression, and the brilliant thing about these is that whilst you can pay to unlock higher value ones directly, the majority of safes you'll open in the game can be earned simply by playing. These then require 10 to 20 minutes to unlock, but that's never been a massive issue for me, bearing in mind there's nothing stopping you heading in and playing through a few more heists or PvP matches whilst you wait for the drill to finish. If you were so inclined, you could spend premium currency to speed these things up, but I found that not to be necessary at all during my time with the game. Of course, they have loot box-like mechanics, and I'm not super into the randomization of heist rewards, but of all the ways PopRich could have implemented a time-gated RNG reward system, this is probably the least scummy of them all, so that's nice. The game also features cosmetics that can be unlocked or purchased, including a selection of Payday 2 masks and outfits to further customize your heister. This was all expected and is by far the healthiest way to monetize any free-to-play title, especially one with PvP elements, although I'd hope to see more original designs in the future, as opposed to just recycling content that already exists in its parent game. Now, where do I stand on Payday Crime Wars monetization? Is it a dreaded pay-to-win setup? Well, it's tough to really know at the moment, especially without playing with other humans online. What I would say is that from my time with the game, I unlocked plenty of iconic Payday 2 weapons without spending a penny. I didn't feel particularly underpowered as a free-to-play player. The classic argument goes that every piece of equipment in the game can be earned without spending anything, although you can spend to speed up the process. Then the question turns to, how long does it take to progress without spending, and what's the impact of an upgrade? From my experience, the numerical advantage of upgrading a weapon is minuscule, and access to later level attachments might confer some advantage, but just like Payday 2's attachments, most come with negatives to balance out the positives, meaning instead of being an outright upgrade, it just changes how the weapon can be used. As such, the practical differences between a level 1 and level 10 weapon seem to be fairly arbitrary and not that impactful on your effectiveness during gameplay, although time will tell if this is a bigger deal than I currently realise. Overall, I'd say this is a classic case of it's not pay to win, it's pay to skip the grind, which is nowhere near as egregious as what I hear from other games in the mobile industry, but still not ideal within a cooperative and competitive game. As I've said, time will tell if this becomes a problem. My initial feeling is that monetization has been quite well tempered, but my likely approach will be to just pick up the Crime Pass if its contents interest me, as from that I'll receive guaranteed rewards instead of dice rolls on the save system. Finally, I just want to touch on the other areas of improvement and potential new features I hope to see from Payday Crime War after the global launch, which should be just around the corner. First up, the music, as with anything Payday related, is brilliant, but we just need more of it. The only in-heist tracks I've been hearing are Payback Roulette and most notably Underground Lockdown, which are great songs, but maybe not best suited as the backdrop to 4 stores. It seems that they'll be using Gustavo-era Payday music for the time being, which is fine by me. I just want to hear more iconic tracks as soon as possible. Similarly, we need the game to offer more of a challenge, especially for veteran players of Payday 2. I'd like to see some new difficulties as soon as possible, designed with the same philosophy as the jump from easy to normal, because this organic style of progressive challenge is absolutely brilliant. It just needs some of that front-loaded mechanical difficulty we're used to experiencing in Payday games. Obviously, as someone most excited for the PvP mode in this game, I'm hoping for greater variety in that experience too. We already know there are more maps set to release from early screenshots, but I'd also like to see some new game modes that play into the heisting formula. Maybe a return of the old domination style attack and defend mode, and a King of the Hill type mode would serve the game well. Alongside that, of course, I'd like to see the competitive nature of the game explored, with leaderboards and potential rank play to develop the scene and keep the more competitive minded of us busy for months to come. Finally, I really hope that Pop Preach intends to try and tackle some of Payday 2's larger scale and more iconic heists. I don't think we should have a Payday game without the likes of First World Bank, but also hugely significant heists like the White House should be an eventual goal for the team. Even if they have to drastically cut down the size of the heist or split it into multiple missions, it would add more value to Crime War as a game, especially as many console players have been unable to experience the White House due to the premature end of the console update cycle. With the game as it is now, heading towards launch, I think we just have to hope that it continues to receive free updates and support to flesh out the Payday gang's roster and their many infamous heists. It's that which will add replayability, keep people hooked and help the game to succeed far beyond the launch of Payday 3 later in the year. As it stands, Crime War is a slightly bare-bones Payday experience that nails enough of the core gameplay loop to remain addictive, but still lacks the substance of Payday 2. It falls back on its excellent arsenal of weapons and satisfying gunplay, as well as the marketability of the iconic Payday gang, trading familiarity for originality. Even so, it's well worth trying out for fans of the series, as it takes full advantage of the mobile medium to bring that Payday experience in more bite-sized doses. If it's any indicator, I recorded all the gameplay I needed for this video, and yet still logged on the next morning for a couple of heists to start the day. Thanks for watching this video. Those of you here wanting more Payday Crime War from this channel, I will be covering its development as more information and updates are released, but rest assured the challenge runs are still coming. I'll see you all very soon in the next video. A huge thank you to my dedicated Patreon backers. If you want to join this crew in going infamous, check out the link below and pledge as little as $2 to see your name in the credits, or get 24-hour early access to future videos and vote on upcoming content. Take care, I'll see you all soon.